Okay guys, this is part 2 of the Massey Ferguson lawn tractor made by Simplicity. We left off where it got it running. It was still smoking. The muffler is still full of oil and gas, and that's going to be a while to burn off. And it seemed like the carburetor was puddling, like it was letting drops of gas go through the system. So it would stumble like just like a misfire. Once in a while it would just stumble. And when it did that, I could hear a strange knocking noise. So there's a bunch of clues here that are leading me to investigate further. So there's the intermittent misfire. There was that odd knocking noise. It just didn't. It's not a rod knock. So it's not as if the bottom end is torn out of the thing. It's not a constant knock, 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 knock every time the rod goes up and down. It was just a once in a while. It was a really heavy knock. So, and combined with the hard starting, I went deeper. So off camera, what I did was I took the top of the motor off, just cover. These two here. You see how there's a shoulder on them? That kind of sits in a recess in the cover. You don't have to take them all the way out, you just loosen them. So those two in the front, one here at the back, one on this side at the back, can't see it, but those two back ones would have been far easier with a ratcheting wrench, but I didn't have that. So I just took my time, got it off, and I took the debris screen off first. And then this is the fan that pulls air. So the air comes down through that debris screen, and this fan blows it under the cowling. That battery died there. I had to swap the battery out of you guys. Okay, so anyways, where were we? The fan on the top here pulls air through the debris screen, which is important. Every time you fill up your fuel tank, you should be wiping that top of that screen off, make sure it's clear. The air goes through, gets shoved out the side of this fan, and it goes under the cowling, and the design of the cowling forces the air to go down through the cooling fins and out the bottom of the head. Keeps everything nice and cool. We got some little bit of oil in there, a little bit of debris. It's possible that the seal on the crankshaft underneath here is not quite 100%, but we had a lot of fuel in the oil. So that definitely will thin it. It'll make it creep out of everything that it can. But on to the moral of the story here. So, we had hard starting, intermittent miss, and that strange knock noise. Let me get you in a stand here. I already went ahead and took this off, but get you in a stand and I'll show you what I found. There we go. Make sure you guys don't fall over. Going to pop the top of the big bolt off. Torque on that bolt should be extremely tight, about 100 to 120 pounds, I believe. But when I took it off the first time, that's as easy as it was. So the bolt was loose. So I thought, okay, well, maybe I found my problem. Popped the bolt out, and I thought, well, I'll check everything in there and check the threads of the bolt, make sure nothing's stripped, check for cracks, check for anything that didn't look right. Well, I found something that's not right. What I found when I took the bolt off is that in there. So I can get you a good shot of that. So that little key on the crankshaft goes into that slot on the flywheel, and that's what gives you your timing. That gives you your ignition timing. So what's happened is the motor came to an abrupt stop at some point in its life and sheared that key. So the engine, the crankshaft came to a stop instantly. The flywheel, because it's so heavy and it had momentum, continued turning, sheared that key off. But it was just to a point where it'll still run, but not well. It'll give us the symptoms that we're experiencing. Interesting development. Sometimes that can happen. It's not as often on a lawn tractor, anything that's belt driven, because there's a certain amount of give. There's slippage. So definitely say with a push mower where the blade is attached directly to the crankshaft, if you hit something really, really hard, it'll generally stop that engine fast enough to shear a key. I haven't seen many of them shear like this. A severe backfire, I imagine, would do it. But what we're going to end up doing is I'll grab a puller, I'll pull this flywheel off. I got to go find myself a key. I do have a local tractor place. They are awesome. They have all kinds of stuff for small engines and tractors and such. So I'm going to see if I can find one of those keys today. I'm going to pull that flywheel off, change the key, put it back together, and see how it goes. What I'll end up doing likely is while I'm in here, and for what it takes, do a little cleaning in here, do a little bit of house cleaning, and I'm just going to verify the gap between the coil and the flywheel magnet. It looks to me to be a little tight, just a little bit tight, and the flywheel is quite rusty. So we'll get into that and I'll show you how that's done. Super simple, no special tools required. Let me gather some more parts. Looks like I'm making another trip to the store, and we'll go forward from there. This has definitely turned into to be an interesting project. It's going to be nice when it's done. Okay, here's where we're at. I've got my puller on there on the flywheel. I did go to the store and grab myself a new key for the flywheel. If you hear a little buzz in the background, I've got the AC on in the window. It's getting pretty hot and sticky in here, so we've got the AC on to keep myself cool while we're doing this. Well, anyways, we've got the puller on there. There's 2 holes in the flywheel that are threaded. These happen to be standard. These are 5/16 coarse bolts, part of the kit. The idea of these is the forcing screw goes down into the center on the crankshaft. There's a different adapters you can put in there. This one happens to be a large cone, and what you're trying to do is keep the puller's threads, the puller screw, out of the threads that the flywheel bolt goes into. So at this point, I've already broken it loose. It was not very tight. I just used a little impact. You can use a larger impact, or you can try and hold the flywheel and get a ratchet on there. But usually if you get a bit of tension on there and then just give it a tap with a hammer, everything will just pop and come off. They're not usually too hard to get off. So I'll show you how that works. You just tighten that down and the flywheel lifts up. This one here didn't take much. It popped pretty easy, and that's because it had turned and the keyway was sheared. That's why it came off so easy. We're just going to lift this all the way off. Let's see where our parts are. Key in there. Get this unscrewed. Get that out of the way. Okay, get the forcing screw out of the way. The key fell out in my hand underneath here. There's the adapter. Flywheel down there out of the way. And this is our problem. This key sheared when the crankshaft spun on the, when the flywheel spun on the crankshaft. So that sheared off, allowed the flywheel to turn independently of the crankshaft and threw the timing out. So we're gonna grab a blowgun, we're gonna clean that out, make sure that there's no junk. We're there, it's right close. I'll just give it a little bit of a wipe, blow all this stuff out of here. I'll check the underside of the flywheel, blow that out too. The magnets here, the magnets pass by these coils. That's the stator, that's the charging system, that's what charges the battery on the tractor. So we'll just make sure that all this stuff is clean and clear and get her cleaned up. I'm going to clean up the coil a little bit here, the ignition coil. I'm going to blow that off. First thing first, I'm going to cover the carburetor. This is the carburetor inlet. I'm just going to cover that off so we don't get any debris and garbage down in there. And we're going to set the gap on the coil after we get the flywheel on. So I'm going to grab the blowgun. No sense you guys watching that stuff flying everywhere. So pause the camera here. We'll get right back after I get it cleaned up. Okay, I've got that blown out. I blew the stator out. It doesn't have to be spotless in here. I cleaned the back side of the coil here, these legs, because we're going to be adjusting the depth here. I want to have a nice accurate reading. If it's built up with oil and junk and dust and dirt, then it's not going to give us a nice reading. So on the flywheel, there are a couple of magnets, or there's one magnet on the flywheel. Get you out stand here, show you. That's a magnet here. That passing by those legs of the coil triggers the coil to spark. So I just took the rust off. I just sanded it with some emery cloth, and once I get the spacer in there, it'll give us a nice accurate reading. Alright, so that's our next step is to grab the new key, get that situated in the crankshaft where it needs to be. Just going to go in a little slot. You can barely see it, it's just on the back side here. That little slot there, new key's going to go in. We're going to gently lower the flywheel on top, rotating it to let it drop in. We're going to get the bolt put back in there. Got to look up the spec for it. I want to make sure that that's tight. From what I've read, in the past that bolt was 100 foot-pounds, but I think they updated it to be a little tighter. So we'll get it on there, I'll get it snugged down, and then I'll look up the spec and find out from there. Let's get that key in there. Should fit in there nice and smooth. Should stay in. It's not going to be hanging out, falling all over for us. We'll grab the flywheel. That is, like I said, there's a magnet on it, so sometimes it can be a little hard to get that lined up straight with it or trying to snap down. I've got my fingers underneath it. Sometimes that's a bad place to put them because that flywheel will drop down real hard and pinch them. There we go. Seemed like it bottomed out. I'm just going to give it a little tap. Just a little tap with a rubber mallet. Make sure it sets down. Yeah, that's down. Okay. I didn't see any Loctite on that bolt when I took it out. I'm not going to put any on it. I'm just going to snug it down for now, and we'll get the proper torques back on there. Snugging it down now will allow me to get the coil set to the gap. That's enough for that. So let's get the coil set up. I'll find my spec and we'll get that set as well. Okay. So all you have to do, loosen your coil. 2 screws. These are 5/16 or 8mm. These screw holes are in the coil are slotted. You can pull the coil away. That movement there. See how the coil moves? We'll bring that back around. And as I did that, the coil pulled itself in to the magnet. So, give ourselves an air gap. What you want to use is a standard business card, just a regular business card. It'll fit right in there. Just gentle. You want the coil to find its own home. Honestly, I never even looked to see what that thickness is, but this is what always works. Just snug. These are little tiny bolts. They don't have to be crazy tight. You're going to break the bolts off or strip the aluminum. You don't want to increase your problems. So there we are. That's it. Gap should be good there. I'll pop you out of the stand so we can get a nice close-up. The gap is a little bit more than it was. You can just see it right in there. That gap is just a little tiny bit more than it was. But it was also covered full of oil and debris and old junk. That's perfect. We're here. We're already right here. It makes sense just to loosen a couple of screws and make sure that that is right. So I'm going to jump on the interweb. I'm going to find myself that torque spec on that big bolt. We'll torque it down and continue with this project. Okay, so I found the spec. My Briggs & Stratton check sheet torque spec says 100 pounds. I did read somewhere else, somewhere online, that they've upgraded that and updated that, but I couldn't verify it. So what I did was I torqued it to 110. It's a happy medium. We'll see how that works. It should be fine. It was interesting to hold that flywheel and turn and tighten that bolt, because there's nothing really there to hold that flywheel. So what I did was I grabbed the block of wood and I went underneath the deck and I blocked the blade so it couldn't turn. I engaged the blades, used the lever to engage the blades, and it won't hold it, but it'll help. With enough torque, I'm putting 100 foot-pounds on that bolt. That is far, far more torque than this engine can even produce. So none of the pulleys and everything would hold to that. It'll just continue to spin. Well, I'm going to show you what I did. I'm sure Briggs & Stratton or somebody, small engine shop, would have a tool to hold the flywheel. There's got to be a way to do this. I'll show you what I did. So in combination with the wood holding the blade, I put my screwdriver down in the flywheel and against a strong piece of structure on the outside. Let's get you zoomed in there. Let's see where I was. So this is the standoff that's holding the coil. It's a cast piece. It is aluminum, so I had to be very careful. But I slid the screwdriver into the flywheel tooth here and rested it against that piece. And then I was able to grab that torque wrench on there and I pulled 110 pounds and it clicked and I said, good enough, it's in. So that's that. We've got the covers off now. I did notice there's a couple of things, little things, that it just seems to be a never-ending project here. But while we're here and we can see everything, we got the cover off, I'm going to make a small adjustment. What I did notice was when I was looking at the throttle, when you go to start it, you lift the throttle. Let's see if I can get a good shot of that. So as I'm increasing the throttle, that slide is coming back. You can see it. The cable is getting shorter. At this point, it should go to choke. This lever continues to move, pushes this arm like that, and as it pushes the arm, we're going to watch this. This is the choke butterfly. So it does move it. So the throttle lever is all the way in the choke position, but there is still movement in the butterfly. I'm reaching my finger down inside the throat of the carb here. The butterfly is not completely closed. It's simple to fix. What I'm going to do is, let me get the light on there. There we go. I'm going to loosen this screw with the choke, with the throttle lever in the full choke position. I'm going to loosen the screw and I'm going to pull the sheathing of the cable backwards. Essentially, it's pulling the cable more. By pulling the cable more, it should be able to close that choke all the way. Should be able to get that butterfly to work better. We'll get you in a stand. I'll try and get all of us in there so we can all see what's going on at the same time. Get some tools together and we'll get that adjusted. Okay, so got the throttle. That's idle. Pull the throttle all the way open. That should be choke. We have to try and get this to close a little bit further. So I'll loosen that screw down here just a little. It's a clamp that's holding the outside of that sheath. So I'll loosen that screw a little. See if I can pull that a little bit more. Might be able to. Oh, there we go. It did move. So that choke is all the way on now. Did move just a little. So we're going to snug that there, and we're going to do a full travel check. We're going to check to make sure it goes all the way to choke, and make sure it goes all the way to idle. We don't want to cause this to hold the idle higher than it's supposed to be. So that's full choke. That's full idle. Full choke. Back down. Okay. This is partially controlled with the governor, so there is some spring tension on it. I'm going to brake clean that off, make sure it works nice and smooth. That's the throttle, that's the butterfly. So we want to make sure that the initial movement of that cable, you can see it just moving here. We want to make sure that during this initial movement, the throttle butterfly here is not moving. We don't want it to be idling up when it's that close. We want to be able to, we want to have a little bit of wiggle room there. But we do want it at full lift on the throttle cable. We want this butterfly to be closed, and it is now. That's it. Small little adjustment. It's going to make it start easier because it was not getting full choke before, and now it is. Little things to look for. Buy an old machine like this that's been previously enjoyed and previously neglected. Sometimes you'll run into little things. The list of little things keeps getting bigger and bigger. So I'm going to clear up a little bit. I'm going to put the covers and everything, put the tins back on this. The top end is going to get it's going to get this base put back on it. Those are just a couple of bolts. Gotta find where I did with them. Put them in the safe place. There they are. You guys probably saw them. Didn't tell me. Wait and see how long it was going to take me to find them. This just holds the cover down. There's not nothing's critical there. We'll zip them down. Okay. Turns over. Now we'll put the debris screen on top of that. There's 4 little torque screws that hold that on. And my parts tray. That's the wrong screwdriver. Things go better when you got the right tools. There we go. It's a steel screw threaded into plastic. Nothing gorilla tight. Just common sense. Snug it down just so they don't fall out. This is the screen I was talking about earlier that every time you fill your gas up, it doesn't hurt. Grab a rag, check the oil. Takes you 5 seconds. Can save an engine. Same time, you should be brushing off the grass, whatever builds up on top of this debris screen, because it'll prevent that internal fan from cooling the engine. Takes less than 5 seconds. Takes 1 second to wipe that off. Could save your engine. Alright, we've got that to the point where I'm ready to put the covers on. That was an interesting thing to get in. Those covers are a little snug. Didn't want to fit down the didn't want to fit out from underneath where the gas tank is. Got the stand adjusted here, the tripod. That light is good enough for you guys to see. Any better? Yeah. I'm trying to avoid the glare here. Okay, see if I can mangle that cover back down in there. That out of the way. Oh, by the way, while I'm here, this is a 31,000 series engine. This is the key that I picked up from my local tractor dealer, actually. Very good people. They're great people to deal with. They got all kinds of neat little odds and ends in stock. I don't think I've ever not had in stock what I needed. Obscure carburetor kits from old 2-stroke, they had one in stock. Lucky me. So that worked out for the best. Get that top cover on. You have to remove the dipstick too, the dipstick itself to do it. The tube can stay. Get that out of the way. That won't fit through the hole. So we gotta get this wiggled in and under. Well, that went on easier than it came off. That's that. Check the back. Little tedious bolts back there. Good enough for that. 10mm wrench. Get behind there. There's 2 more on the back. That's it. They just had to be loosened. They didn't have to be removed, which is handy, especially back here. There's not a lot of knuckle room back here. I haven't even pulled the carburetor apart yet. I'm gonna fire it up just like this. See what happens. Should be wiping any debris out of there that happened to get stuck in there. Dipstick back on, keep the crap out and oil in. I'm kind of excited. I'm glad I decided to look at that crank key. Bet you that'll solve our starting problems as well, where it seems like it's got a dead battery or too much compression. Bet you that'll fix that. That's good. Pop the air filter on the other side. Not a bad setup for an air filter on these. I guess that's called the high capacity, or different brand, different models, but okay, quick mental checklist. Those are tight. Those 2 back ones are tight. That's tight. Those 2 bolts are tight. Screen's good. Let's turn the fuel on. I'll back you up. Let's see if it runs or if it explodes. It's anybody's guess. Make sure the blades are off. I did have them on, so they're off. They're good. Choke. I don't know what that was about. Didn't want to crank. Didn't want to make anything. Didn't click, didn't do anything. So let's see. Runs good. Carburetor was empty, so it took a little bit to fill that, but runs good. Doesn't start like it's got a dead battery, so that seems to be working. I'll carry on. I might push it outside and clean it up. Get rid of some of the oil and junk off of it. I'll fix up my starter cables and see what happens. Alright, we'll catch up when I resume here. Thanks. Alright, this is going to be the last little segment for this part of the video. It's going to be a multi-part, it seems. Maybe 3, maybe 4 parts to this this mower project. Just wanted to jump on this one. This is, so far we're about a half an hour in. So previously in the video, I had an issue with it starting. It wouldn't crank, wouldn't click, wouldn't do anything. And it was kind of strange because what happened was it was a safety. The safety wasn't allowing the engine to start. So when the key was in the crank position, turned all the way to crank, it had no spark. But as soon as I released the key to the run position, it would have spark and it would fire and run. Now it was going on and off. Sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't. Sometimes it would blast this huge backfire out of the muffler. I really had no idea what was going on. But what it turned out was, there's a ground wire. We're going to get into my rigged up little booster cable setup here. What it turned out was there's a little ground wire. Now this ground wire wasn't hooked up earlier, and me just poking around the machine, I found it sitting there. So I hooked up the ground wire just onto the booster cable there, and that's when that problem started. So what happened was that ground wire grounds the ignition switch. When your ignition switch, oh sorry, I should also say, when I did get it running, when it wasn't backfire, it would fire up eventually, and I would shut the key off, and it would continue to run for like 3-4 seconds, and then it would eventually choke out and stop. Well, I wasn't sure what was going on. I'm thinking, I didn't know if I had pinched a wire under the stator when I had all this stuff apart, so I'm looking for all kinds of stuff. I couldn't figure out what was going on. But anyways, this ignition switch is mounted in plastic, which means it has to have a ground wire to kill everything and to make it work properly. The wire that's under the seat is that wire. Once I hooked that up, it wouldn't start. What I figured out was it was the clutch pedal safety. All the time before, without that ground wire hooked up, if the clutch pedal was released up in that position, it would start, no problem. It's not supposed to. You're supposed to have that clutch down to start the motor. So there's a little lock knob right here. They call it the parking brake. You can see it. I actually call it a parking brake. So you pull some pressure on that knob, you push your clutch down, and it locks it down. Now it works absolutely perfect, exactly the way it was. So before that ground wire was hooked up, it was actually bypassing a safety. So that's figured out. I didn't do that on camera because sometimes getting into problems like that is a little hard to film, and it takes a little more concentration. What I did get done was I did pull the carburetor bowl off. I pulled the bowl, had a look in there. It was spotless, absolutely spotless in there, super clean. That little fuel filter's doing its job, but I don't have any worries about what's going on in there. What we're going to do here is we're going to cut this video off. It's going to become part 3. I still got lots of little things to do on this. I'm going to lubricate all the stuff that needs to be lubricated. Make sure the adjustments are adjusted. Once that's done, I'm going to take it outside and then I'll pressure wash it, get it all nice and cleaned up. This wiring mess here, I'm going to tidy that up. I'm going to put some of this wire loom on it, get it nice and neat running in there. And it's not just for appearance either. If you get the vibrations start to move those wires around, you can actually get chafing and shorts and all kinds of other stuff. So we're going to end this video here. I'm going to do my best to get a part 3 done and get it posted. Thanks for joining me, guys, and following along with this project. It's been interesting. It's a neat little thing for me. It's my hobby. It's what I do. Please like, comment, subscribe, and watch for my next video coming out. We'll continue on with this and see what becomes of it. Alright, catch you later.